Okay, now we're going to look at recording some vocals. We're going to look at the hardware side and the software side. So to start with, we're going to be using a condenser microphone. This is a general purpose condenser, but in this case, it's going to be perfect for capturing our vocals. Okay, so first put the stand in somewhere that is safe and secure. Make sure you fix everything properly. Okay, so now let's think about where we're going to position the mic. Of course, we have the mic on the stand. The stand should be safe and secure, and the mic should be at the right level with the vocalist. We also want to make sure that we actually get the position of the pop shield correct, and also the distance between the vocalist and the microphone itself. Take into account acoustics of the space. Placing it too near a wall or too near a piece of kit means you'll get lots of reflections coming back and maybe recording those. Monitor level. Now this is something you need to think about and collaborate with the vocalist and get right between you. The level in the headphones, and also possibly using effects to feedback for the vocalist while they're recording as well. Now for a quick project update in terms of how we're progressing. Live hats were the first element. In fact, they're much faster. The original recording is much faster than they are at the moment. We're using Elastic Pro tape mode, which slows them down like a deck or a piece of tape. Sounds great with loops. It's a really nice way of adding a bit of character to things here. We've also got the drums. Individual multi-mic drum kit. Played along to that live hat element. And we've looped a short 4-bar section of these. They've been edited to maximise or optimise the timing. We'll be looking at that again later. Now we also have Yamaha CP, which comes from one of the new Yamaha keyboard, mini keyboard modules, and the bass, which comes from Retrolog, which we'll be exploring in the synth part of this. Held bass notes, simple live played, in other words recorded via audio, piano elements. We've discussed some of the hardware side of things. Now let's look at the software. In Cubase, we've got an audio track set up ready to receive the mic recordings. Now if we look in the mic channel, you can see here we've got the hardware tab, and that's receiving the audio. And we can set up things there that directly control the Steinberg interface. We're using the high-pass filter for recording vocals, which we will do shortly. And we can also set up various things in terms of how the onboard DSP is configured. These you won't necessarily get with your audio interface, but it's a nice way of actually accessing them directly from Cubase if you've got a Steinberg product there. Now, let's look at the audio channel. Click on the little speaker to monitor. And we can choose how we set this up. There's lots of different options. What I've done here is you can actually set up, so if I set up a reverb send on the audio channel, anything that's being recorded on that channel will also be sent out to the reverb. Now that's assuming that you don't use the direct monitoring. As soon as you enable direct monitoring, you're only going to hear that dry signal then going back out through the audio card, and you then have to rely on the onboard reverb if you have it on your sound card if you want to get that working with the reverb. But actually this is quite a nice way that works with any audio card, and you can set up the reverb. Reverb doesn't matter if it's delayed slightly because of the latency when you're recording vocals, because in fact that's a bit like the pre-delay. So you can add a little bit of ambience if you want to. You can get much more complex in terms of the way in which you set up the monitoring for vocalists or other performers, and that's something you do in the control room. And also in association with the VST connections window, you can actually set up cue mixes, multiple cue mixes, headphone mixes, and so on, and route them to different outputs, would then go to a headphone amp and so on. And you can then use your cue sends within each individual channel to set up very complex mixes where you can actually set up, in fact, a whole series of 4 different mixes in effect for different performers, much like a sort of monitoring and a live mix console. Back to the audio track. I'm going to set up lanes, the lanes button, click that for on. This is really useful when you're doing multiple takes and you actually want to keep track of what the takes are doing. This goes back, it's related to the audio record mode in terms of the way in which the audio is presented there. That's certainly something that you want to visualize what's going on. So I'd say make sure that the lanes is turned on. To demonstrate this, I've got lanes turned on. I'm going to record. And you can see the first audio recording coming through there. The second one then jumps down. So whilst you're cycling, you'll see it's always being added to a new lane. So this is really useful if you're doing multiple vocal takes in a long loop, so you're working by yourself. And you can punch in on the fly. So I'm playing, press record again, and you can see it just records that little portion between the presses of the record button. Very, very useful. Finally, don't forget the audio pre-record setting within Cubase in the preferences. This allows you to capture and record audio even when the recording button hasn't been pressed. If you go into the preferences, audio pre-record, so it's basically saying there'll be 1 second of audio pre-record. It's always recording. So if I press play, record, I've started recording, but it's actually got 1 second before that. So in effect, what's happening is Cubase is recording the whole time. So you never miss anything. You could set that to 10 seconds. So you'll actually have 10 seconds of whatever went on before that. Very, very useful. So now for a track update, we've got our vocals. In fact, we've got 5 vocal takes of the main vocal here. And you can see they've set up on different lanes, ready for comping. And I also have harmony vocals, they're in a group themselves, high and low harmonies, ready for comping as well. Okay, so we've done our vocal recording and we've covered mic position, position of the vocalist, monitoring, acoustics and effects and other things like that as well. Next, we're going to look at taking the recordings we've already made and actually comping it up, editing it and correcting if necessary.